sir. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Took a while, huh?
So the sofa. It took a while. We tried on, what was it, Friday, and then we tried yesterday. You sent me that beautiful picture.
We tried Monterey, and it worked. So we've been at it a while.
And that was, it's a shame that we couldn't do in your Airbnb, that beautiful, the fans. I'm going to send the pictures.
The juries are still out on whether that is beautiful or not. And whether I was like serious when I told you that was a good backdrop.
That's a very good backdrop.
Yeah, thank God that there is something in the thing that says, no filming for commercial. It's like, is this commercial? It's like, I hope it qualifies.
Yeah, no, it does qualify. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
I don't know how much they can do about it, but we're all about forgiveness.
So we meet here in Argentina.
Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires. It's not your. No. You were here in October. You said in Córdoba.
I was in Córdoba.
Okay.
So many times in Argentina, never in Buenos Aires.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, this is your first.
It is the first time, and I got sick as a dog on the plane, so that I could not really.
That's odd to me.
Enjoy. Yeah. It's been going great. This is actually a highlight. Any other day. I'm not that self-conscious, but any other day I would be like, I was seeing myself in the mirror and I was like, I'm on. So you think this is bad? You should have seen the rest of the week, right?
But you managed. You did a presentation yesterday. It was amazing. I think, everybody loved it because it was so different. I think we were expecting something different. You're speaking from the buyer side, but what you gave was a masterclass on how to position ourselves, it was really good.
I think that, so thank you. And again, it's very intentional. I think that there is like different things that you can offer at conferences or things like that. I don't have a lot to share, from personal, or I think I don't have a lot to from trajectory or personal experience, things like that. The things that I do, I'm very work focused. I heavily identify, some people say there's your personal, there's your work life and everything. I do. My professional identity is super important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I really care about what I do. And thankfully, I call myself, I got a few things right among the many things I got wrong. And I just love being able to package it up for people so that they can go and do it and hopefully be successful as well. Also, because we need it, right? We're like that profession that grows from your interest in languages to running a business in some capacity.
And speaking of which, you talked about your trajectory. You've been everywhere. You started as an entrepreneur, and then you worked on the vendor side. Now you are on the client side. So I think this shows in your presentation. You have all the perspectives and you showed, okay, here is an audience of entrepreneurs, of mostly business owners. Let me talk their language and give advice.
It's a lot worse than that. I did start as a translator and not necessarily the best translator. So the first thing that I did was literary translation. And no,
really?
Yeah. And I sucked at it because my command of English wasn't good enough.
Okay.
So I couldn't really, I was good with Spanish, my mother tongue, but I couldn't really there's a lot of things I didn't understand. Nuances of the language that they just escaped me. I had not been exposed to them. I had not lived abroad. I had no bilingual parents, things like that. When I went to study translation, a lot of the people had that kind of background.
Right.
And their English was so many miles ahead of mine. So I found that wasn't like the best suit. But then I started to pick on things that technology, and then being a decent translator, focusing on one area, and then adding technology to the mix, both as knowledge and both as toolings and things like that. That is how
you learn it yourself. You didn't. So I thought you had a tech background. I didn't know you had a translation background.
No. I have a translation background. So when I had to, usually we don't talk about these things. But when I had to choose, I didn't know what to pick. Language, because it came easy to me,
right?
Or computers, because that's what my brother did. So my brother is 11 years older than me.
Okay.
So I spent my childhood sitting on top of his pillow, which he hated, watching him do things on the computer that I did not understand. This is very early in computers, right? And but I happened to always have an edge because I was, too young to be near computers. And I was lazy when I had to pick what to do. I thought, computers seems really hard. Language, not so much. And I went with that, but then I've always kind of like lived in between.
But you ended up going towards more computer than, I mean, it's a mixture.
It's whatever comes to you naturally, right? So language is something that you might love, or that in my case that came easily. But man, the potential of computers and building things and kicking things, and the fact that other people would struggle with it, that you would be good at it. That was, for me, that was like brain candy, you know. And that is, you know, it's going and having my own business came from that. From building on the technology side, because other people could only do the language side. There's always something that people need that they can grow internally that you can capitalize on. So that's what I did. And that's how I ended up going all in by selling my company to an American company to build it up pretty much from the ground up. Employee number 3.
Oh, yeah?
After 2 interns.
Nice.
There was a CEO and with already an idea and a business in place. 2 interns from Miss.
Oh, wow.
When I started. So I got to I chose technology because that was like my biggest differentiator, but also brought a lot of that experience in working with translation companies and a network of contacts. And so I've managed to always like bring the whole package together.
And you do. I think it's clear that, speaking of which, we're going to talk about the global experiences.
Okay.
I remember when I posted about my new position and the solutions department that we developed, you reposted that, and I really appreciate it. But then soon after, you introduced the global experiences idea, which is the transformation that you did in your own department at Coupa. And I thought, wow, that makes a lot of sense because there were lots of similarities. Tell me about that. Tell me about that little revolution that you made there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a revolution. I like to say, and the word that I use internally, and I recommend everyone, do not say that you're transforming this. Do not say that you're rebranding. It is an evolution.
Okay.
And sadly, it's an evolution that it's propitiated by the fact that we're always like looked down upon, right? Is no one sees the complexity, unintended, the complexity of what we do and the value that it creates. Very few people do. Some people do. Most people think that what we do, you do language, translation, all of that is a commodity, right? But then there's this word that we've been using because someone couldn't have something better, locale and localization. For me, it's like over 25 years of explaining to people what that is.
Exactly.
You know, you want to like talk to the person in the elevator or at the coffee line or something and tell them what you do. And you end up saying other things because if you said what comes to mind, it doesn't make any sense.
We always end up saying, oh, it's translation. It's translation with the twist, a translation with technology, translation. But we always go back to translation. And it's not translation.
It is not translation.
Yeah.
For me, I don't know. Some people say that maybe it's always translation. To me, it's like, it's never been translation. I've never been able to work on something when it was only translation. I always had to think about who was exactly the end user of the content, of the UI, I've always been in localization proper, right? In software, things like that. There's always a user in mind. You need to think about the user that happens to speak the language, but also they have a lot of other things in context. Does the company, does the project, does the work let you go all into localization? Can it work for that user in particular? That varies, right? But the intent should always be there. Translation doesn't work. Translation is just like spitting words out that make sense without a context. If you have context, it's localization.
There you go.
How do you package all of this for everybody else to understand?
And our inability to do this, to package it in a better way. So we use global content. You use global experiences. Mm-hmm. I've seen Mercedes uses international experience. So experience. I think experience is a good way to put it on the buyer side, on the client side, because it is. It's, what you were saying is, customizing the experience, the user experience. Mm-hmm. So it's UX on another level. Do you think this is where we're heading towards with AI? Because with AI, you can customize not only the language, but the audience.
Yeah, it is trickier, and AI is going to help or it's going to accelerate, but still not going to solve it. But can we do more? I don't know. I think that stays with whoever is driving the program and what it is that you want to produce. as an outcome. So experiences, and I chose deliberately experiences and not experience, because there's no such thing as one experience for everyone. So user experience works because every user will have one, but you can't go with one. But your user experience is plain. You need to go with something that resonates better. I went with experiences after talking to a lot of people and say, does this make sense? I want to take that experience small for that type of user in that region with that problem, and we're going to solve that one. We have a very similar user in another context, and we don't have the means or the knowledge or the reach or the timing is not right. We're not going to touch that one. So we're not fixing the global experience for all of them because it's similar. We're going to do one experience at a time. That is why we went with plural, which I hope that people will be able to pick it up. It is changing. It's so funny. I published an article about this. I don't know when it was, but like 6 months ago.
It was, yes.
Something like that. There is at least 10, 12 companies that now are using.
Oh, really? Oh, how nice.
And international is another one. I think that international for us, for me, for instance, is it competes with other things.
Okay.
International, there may be other people who want to have that claim, or international doesn't necessarily speak to different people within the same region.
Okay.
So I work in the US. So
interesting.
My Spanish-speaking user in the US,
it's another audience that is not necessarily international.
Than my Mexican.
That's true.
Than my Guatemalan. They're like all very different. So international did not necessarily work with me, and also there is internationalization as a competing function. So I chose to go with the one
global.
That
I like global too.
Right, and it's cool. It is a good word to.
It is
normalization, localization, internationalization. They're a mouthful, anyways. But it's easier to get on that line at the bakery, or talk to the person on the plane. Is when they say, "What do you do?" It's like, well, I create global experiences for the content and the products of my organization. So basically, we can go anywhere.
Makes sense.
Can you see that the difference between that and having to explain?
It's so much easier. So much. Nobody's looking like, localization.
I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. It's like, yeah, it is really cool.
If this is what we've been doing forever,
cool.
yeah.
That was the requirement for that, not something that you think that a machine will do, or a cheap contract will do, or your niece will do because she took French in the school.
Exactly.